Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining me in today's live. And hi, I'm Charu. I am a UX designer. I work at Google. And today I'd like to talk to you about how can you design more intuitive and better products which can serve the needs of today's generation. And if you're interested in design or if you have any experience, it'll be a great um, uh, uh, I think it hopefully it will be a useful session for you. And if you have no prior experience with design, in that case, I'm sure you will be able to get an understanding of what design process looks like when you work as a professional designer, and what are the kind of ups and downs, or what is the entire design journey looks like when you're designing products these days. So I'm sure you will be able to get a good overview of everything. In terms of details, I'll try to detail out things as much as I can, but feel free to reach out to me later also after this session. So yeah, that's what I wanted to brief you before I start. And now I will start sharing my screen. In case I'm not able to read your messages, I'd like to use Riddhi's help, who's also here along with me. So yeah, I'll call out in case I would like to read the messages I'm not able to see. So I'll just quickly jump into my presenter's view and start sharing my screen. So yeah, hopefully, can you all see my screen now? Riddhi, if you are there and if you can unmute yourself and let me know if you can see my screen, will be better.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me again. And as I mentioned, I work as a UX designer in Google currently. Uh, to give you a little bit of background about myself, I'm not sure if you all know me. So I started my journey as a designer when I joined design college, which was NIFT in Mumbai, and I did study communication design from there. I did my bachelor's basically from there. It was a 4 years course, and it gave me a good kind of basically a good idea about what design looks like. It was a general communication design course, but I think I figured that I'm more interested in UX and UI design side of things, and I pursued that later. After that ended, I got a small internship, and after that, I joined Zomato as a product designer in the beginning. And I worked there for around 2 years, and I was extremely I mean happy because I got to work on different kinds of products Zomato had, and a lot of redesigns we did over there of the main Zomato apps. And as well as I worked on Zomato Gold, which was the newest subscription plan which they were coming up with at that time. And it was a memorable time. I met some great people at this time, as well as I got to learn a lot about learning products which are kind of serving users day-to-day needs, and what are the challenges, what are the challenges which you can face while you're doing that. So I learned a lot over here. Then the second part was when I moved to Microsoft, I started working on products which were globally used and which had a much wider range of users. So I worked on the first Office app, which we designed from a team based out of India. And I was in Microsoft for around 3 years. It was an amazing experience again because it was a huge team and a huge company to work with, and they had like a huge set of softwares, and that actually served different kinds of domains, different users. So it was really great to learn about all of them. And these were actually some of the products I worked on, and some of the products which my work touched in some ways or the other. And finally, today I have joined, today I'm working in Google, and I joined around uh, basically last year during the pandemic, and I have been working on a couple of products, and I'm basically looking at improving the consumer engagement side of all the Google products. So my team kind of works at on designing intelligent experiences for all the products in Google, and especially the customer engagement side of things, where there are critical moments in a product's journey where users needs more assistance, more help. So we kind of look at all that. And apart from that, I this is just my personal project which I work on, which I call Thoughtful, and it's a collection of comics which are specially based on deep-rooted biases which we have because of maybe our environment or society, and stigmas which we have built in our minds. And I actually have a page on Instagram, so if you are interested, you can follow it as well. And I kind of post small comics over there, and I've got good engagement till now on those. So I continue to work on this on side. So that was all about me. And Before I jump into the topic which we actually want to cover today, I'd like to ask a few questions. Let's just like it's just like a small quiz to kind of get all of us engaged. So I'd really like you all to type in your answers in your chat, and Riddhi, if you can help and read out, that'll be great. So is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. So I want to check your knowledge a little bit over here, but it's not exactly that. But what I want to ask is like just look at these interfaces, and these belong to some products, and I just want you to take a guess what product is this, just by looking at it. And also, to make it clear, these I've taken some examples from the internet of these products which basically had the UI which you see right now when they just started out. So it was like few years back in time, when in the early age of internet. So these are from those days. So what do you think? Which products UI is this? Are there any guesses on the chat?
I guess people are still guessing. They're taking the time.
Sure, sure. We can hold on for a few seconds and let's see. So this is one of the projects I think a lot of us use now regularly, but this is how it started out in its early times.
Okay, so Anjana says Twitter. Then we have Ashika saying Twitter.
Right.
We have
Awesome.
other few people saying Twitter again.
Okay, great. That's actually the right guess. This was the UI of Twitter, and this is how it looks today, as we all know. But that's how it looked when it really started early on, without, I mean, a lot of information. It was just like a communication platform. And Twitter eventually figured out that people are kind of writing good questions over there, and then others are replying. So it has almost become a mini blogging site, and that this is what it is evolved to today. The next one is this one. So which products UI you think this is?
So we have one answer Facebook.
Okay, Facebook. This I'm sure you for you all it would be new if you're in college, or if we have all I mean students over here, you might have not seen it. I mean, I but I still want you to take a guess.
Bhavya says LinkedIn.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. It's the UI looks like quite boring, and also you feel that it's LinkedIn, right? Okay.
We have
Any other
another
guesses?
answer. Yeah. Anjana says Amazon.
Okay, nice. So
And
I
Maya
think
says Adobe.
okay. Yeah, the logo is pretty
Answers.
much okay. Great. Anjana is right. Actually, it's the UI of Amazon, and you cannot believe this looked like this. I'm sure, but this I took off from the internet, and this is like one of the first UIs of Amazon when it started, and it just started as an online bookstore, and now we already know like how much it has evolved, and it has become uh, kind of like, I mean, something we use every day for our shopping, I mean, and a lot of other needs actually. So yeah, it has evolved a lot over time. The next one is this one. Which UI do you think this is? Which product? Are there any guesses? What do you all
Yeah.
think?
Where says IMDb?
Okay. IMDb is yep, quite close. Yes.
Wow, many people are saying Netflix.
Okay. So yeah, everyone who's saying Netflix is actually right. This was what Netflix started with, and like funny thing is they actually started with movie rentals in the first place, and they still remain. They're still a movie rental, but now they've evolved to like more series and TV shows and all of that. But they're still the pretty much like base is still the same. So, yep, absolutely right. And this is the last one. Which products UI is this? Some of you might be familiar with this one, I'm sure. What do you think? Any guesses?
Facebook, Kostub says we have another few answers. Bhavya says Facebook, Ashika, Facebook. Many people are saying Facebook, and then we
Facebook.
have the answer of Tinder.
Okay, Tinder. Okay, Tinder I think is a fairly new the product, but everyone who's saying Facebook is absolutely right. It's the one of the early UIs of Facebook, and this is what we know it is evolved to. Like does everything from shopping to groups to people, chat, friends, everything you want, right? So yep, uh, you guys are quite smart. You guessed most of these things, so that's amazing. What do you think caused these products to change so much? What do you think really changed in all these years? If I have to ask you one question, I want to ask that like, what is that change that which happened that like due to which these products had to evolve, had to change? What do you think? Any guesses, anything, just feel free to type in the chat. There is no wrong and right over here. It's just like, I mean, yeah, I just want you know, us to interact more. So yeah, anything on the chat box, and any thoughts?
Ayan says life has changed.
Life has changed, absolutely. Right.
Says UI has changed a lot in these years.
UI has changed, right? Absolutely. But the question is, why is UI changed? That, I mean, I want you to think, why has UI changed? What happened that UI had to change?
Mahida says to attract customers.
Okay, good enough. Yes, to attract customers, absolutely.
We have another answer saying evolution of design.
Okay, right, right. Okay, evolution of design. Okay, so I think, yeah, are there any more answers in there?
Yeah, attractive features to attract customers, shifting to minimalism,
Okay, okay,
visual.
great. Visual design. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So we have, I mean, I'm happy that you all are guessing, and some of you actually uh, are bang on that it is to kind of attract new customers or attract more customers. And everyone who guessed things like minimalism or design has evolved, you actually need to think a bit more and understand why has design evolved. So everyone who said that customers, I think that's a right point. How I'd like to, I think, phrase it is, these things have changed, which is the users, or you can say the customers, the environment in which they use these products. And when I say environment, it is external as well as internal. The lifestyle. I think one of you has said life has changed, which is actually the, I mean, simple and correct answer, because life has changed. The way we live, the way we work, the kind of usage of technology we have, everything has changed, right? And lastly, the process. By process, I mean the design process of building products. I think one of you said design has evolved. So that is the last thing, which is due to all these other factors, design process has to evolve, and it has. I mean, we have more more methods, tools, and techniques now in place to design for the users and the current environment, right? So we have to, I mean, yeah, design as a domain has looked at all these changes and in going on in the society, and it has evolved itself, right? So these are the three things I want to talk to you about today. But mainly we'll talk about the process, because we all want to know more about design, or we're learning design. So we like to deep dive into the design process. But let's just look at a few points in users and environment. So when I say users, it's all of us who use our phones every day, laptops, and all these other devices. And I mean, it's not just us; it's our friends, our families, and of all ages, of from coming from different demographics, different geographies. So there are like all these different types of users. And what has really changed is, like, if you just, I just took these data points somewhere, from some of the research online, but most of them like commonly talks about that how 95% of teenagers today have access to smartphones. In our time it was not the case. I think I got my phone in when I started college, and I think that was the case, but that has completely changed. And it has basically, yeah, there are a lot of researches which is done around the online behavior of users of today. So most of us now are online constantly, be it like we all have our own choices, be it Instagram, be it WhatsApp, or whatever is your choice of your social media, or any kind of digital product, but we are online constantly. So that's another point. And compared to our previous, I think, generations, in today's society, we see that social and media has become much more than what it used to be. That's why you saw that evolution in Facebook's UI. It was not just like, just let's just introduce features, but there was a growing need, because there has been like instances where users wanted to turn social networks into a place where they can sell products, and others wanted to discover and buy new products. And that is why you will see features like marketplace, etc., in Instagram, Facebook these days, right? Then there are, like, also we've seen that social media has become a place where users want to get inspired from. And that's why you see a lot of like UIs of YouTube and all changing a lot, where you have more focus on content creators, even Instagram for that matter. Thirdly, there is this gratification theory, which I found from one of the research papers, but it makes so much sense that it just explains that nowadays people are using media like internet, television, social media, mainly to satisfy their needs related to entertainment, engagement, and relaxation. And they are all looking for instant gratification mainly, which is like instantly that feeling of relaxation, or that kind of feeling of entertainment. That is why you see Netflix UI heavily evolving. Like, if you see the homepage of Netflix today, you'll see like so many options. I mean, you don't have to think much. It, like you feel like, yeah, I have so much of time. I don't know what to do. Open Netflix and there are tons of choices over there. You don't have to spend time in deciding. It's all over there. You can, I mean, kind of compare, watch anything, and do all that. So that is the reason why these products decided to change their homepage, change their UI, right? It's not that just maybe fonts needs improvisation, so let's just change the visual design. It has never been like that. So you should understand that um, uh, even like if you see Netflix UI, it has become all this dark mode and all, which is which often happens that we kind of connect it to the change in visual design patterns or minimalism, etc. But that's not the case all the time. I think the dark mode saves a lot of battery. It for eyes, it's very relaxing for the eyes if you're watching something constantly, like you're binge watching, then dark mode is relaxing to your eyes. It kind of uh, I mean, yeah, you can watch for longer time. That maybe like these are some of the factors which has contributed to the evolution of that UI, right? So these were the points I wanted to, I mean, touch on in terms of what has changed in our users lives. But you can, I mean, you can look for a lot more research papers online. You'll find a lot of them around how people's needs or their behaviors around digital products have changed immensely. Now, if we talk about the environment, again, I mean, I just took few points from some of the researches online, but what has really changed is the access to internet. I think this was one of the reports from January 2021, which said that there are around almost around 59.5, that is 60% of global population which are using internet today. That's a huge number, and out of which around 92.6% have access to internet via the mobile phones. So what do we understand from it? We understand that this is a huge number, and probably the section of the society who didn't have access to internet now have access to internet. So the internet or whatever the products we design, they need to evolve to kind of fit into their needs. Like for example, um, we most of us would be using, I think, uh, our apps in English language. Like if you're on YouTube, you would be kind of using it in English, right? But a lot of users, I mean, YouTube is pretty famous or like used a lot in I mean, in a lot of uh, places where people do not predominantly speak English. So what do? They kind of use they change the language, they use it in different languages, and that's not just applicable to YouTube, but that's the reality. Like I know, like our parents, some of our parents might use it not in English, but in Hindi or whatever your regional language is, right? So now, since we have seen this basically this growth in the reach of internet, that is why we I mean, as product designers, we need to understand what I mean, what is the background or what is the environment where users are really using these products, and we need to kind of accommodate for those requirements. For example, sometimes it happens that uh, we all see like there is a, I mean, download or save for later buttons, right, in Netflix or on all these streaming websites. And that's an interesting point because a lot of us are constantly online, but at the same time, I mean, in countries like India, we don't have stable internet in all the places, although it has improved a lot, but it's not really stable all the time. So there are these choices, right? Why was this feature put in the product? It's not just a feature just like that. It's basically coming in from some requirement that maybe users want to save it later, and when they don't have internet, when they're traveling or something, and they want to watch it, right? So these are the kind of points which you have to understand when you say or when you think about any feature. So what really gave rise to it, and that will really help you in building this kind of product mindset. And that's exactly what I wanted to touch on in basically users and environment. And I hope you can understand why I was constantly asking this question, that why do you think these products has changed. So clearly we see that users and environment has changed. And now let's talk about the process, the basically the design process, and how the design process has also actually evolved in these years. I am not sure if you all have heard of something called design thinking, but it's fairly new. I mean, it's kind of like back in 90s it was coined. So if you compare to any other domains, design is like fairly new domain, but now it has evolved a lot, and it has basically, like, we have some sort of uh, I mean, tools or methodologies in place, which now we can apply into any product or any design project we are doing. And basically it can help you become more innovative and become more creative. So today I want to talk a little bit about design thinking and what it exactly is. It's a human centered approach to solve complex problems. And when I say human centered, it's basically the right balance of desirability, feasibility, and viability. What these terms really mean is, feasibility is it possible to make it now. For example, we all want that, hey, I'm like too lazy to eat, so I don't know, like, can there be a robot or whatever to kind of get it done? And there might be actually, but is it feasible for on a consumer level scale? It's not. So maybe that's not a right kind of innovation. Desirability is something that will people like it, because we see there are a lot of innovations. There were um, I mean, we have seen a lot of companies in the past, like, introducing digital gadgets in products, uh, but I mean, they were innovative, but it never stuck with the users because maybe they were not sufficient, or they were not what users desired to use. Like, for example, an iPhone changed the world because it looked desirable. Like, I mean, at that age you'd like to own a phone like that. It was appealing, it was desirable, right? And viability is basically, is it viable? Are you kind of are you viable when you're designing the particular feature product? So you have to kind of find the balance between all these three, and that intersection is something which is innovation, right? That is what innovation is. And so this was a definition given by uh, Tim Brown, who has written a lot of books on design. And this definition is pretty simple in itself, but it's basically kind of a way of thinking which can help you in, solving any kind of complex problem. And I think this is a common method which is used across a lot of companies. It might not be used as it is in the same way. So you have to understand it like, when in terms of design process, this is like a guideline or like a framework, but you as a designer can be creative and can basically mix and match, or kind of break the process down and use a few things and not use a few things. So it's not like a hard and fast rule. So this is important to understand before you jump into it. And these are basically the steps when you are, I mean, you might have heard of it, but these are the stages which are involved in design thinking process. And you can apply it to anything. So for any project or any hackathon or anything you are working on, if you apply these stages to it, you'll surely come up with much better concepts or ideas than you are doing now, like, for sure. So it's just about applying these basically methods. This might need some time to get a hang of, but once you get a hang of it, which most of the designers have, it becomes fairly easy to kind of maybe break the process down and change it and kind of play around with it and all. But yeah, uh, when I talk about the stages involved in the process, so these are mainly the five stages. And then there is one more which I'll talk about in the end. But the first stage is empathize. Then which is about understanding your users. Then you move on to define stage, where you kind of define what you've gathered and you define a problem statement. The third stage is ideate, where you are open to share your ideas with the world. And the fourth stage is prototype, where you basically create prototypes of the tests, prototypes of your ideas, and you kind of make it in a manner where it appears to be real, but it's not real, but it appears to be real to your audience. And the fifth one is test, where you can basically show your prototypes and you can test with them. And I'll talk about all these in detail, but this is an overview of what the process looks like. Now, to explain in simple words, for example, um, just just imagine that pasta is an innovative product, and nobody has ever created pasta before, and this is something new to the world. So, what design thinking is, when if you take this analogy, so the cooking class, which may be like wherein people came together, they discussed ideas, shared their feedback, and experimented. Maybe that cooking class is what design thinking is. So that's how you can, I hope you can understand it better, but that's what design thinking is. So you really need to spend time doing that to come up with ideas or to come up with any innovation you want to. A lot of times we skip these stages and we directly want to jump into the implementation stage and we just want to make what we have in mind. But that sometimes is a waste of time actually, because you didn't follow that whole method and you didn't go through the process, which you might have missed on a lot of possibilities, a lot of opportunities. So it's important to go through the process, especially when you're starting out as a designer. It's very important to go through the process. Now let's talk about these processes in a bit of detail. So what is empathize? It's, how we use this term every day, right? It's basically you try to understand your users, like you just put yourself in their shoes and you understand where they're coming from, what is the background, um, what are the goals, what is if they're trying to achieve from using your product, or just in general, what is the things they want to get done in maybe like in some time, right? Like, for example, when you're actually talking to users, you need to not ask very specific questions, but keep it more generic in the beginning, where you just understand their behavior, like what are the pain points. What is it that is blocking them? Like, you can just ask them that, how's your day like? And that is what is actually going to help you understanding them. If, for example, you are designing a time scheduling app, and you want to ask these users that, hey, how do you manage your time? Maybe that's not the right question to ask, but if you ask them that, how does your day look like, how do you plan, what do you want to do next, or something like that. So that will be more generic in nature, and that will really help them maybe like say out things which they won't say when you ask them things directly. So when you are trying to empathize or and just like do some sort of user research, you need to keep these things in mind. And as I said, empathize basically is user research, right? When you're conducting some sort of study or a research with a set of few users, and what really you want to understand is you want to know what your users do, what are they saying, and what are they thinking, and what are they feeling. So you have to like focus on all these areas. You can use a lot of tools and techniques. I'm not going to go deep into it right now, but you can use a lot of tools and techniques like user interviews, or which is basically setting up some time with them and kind of having some sort of questionnaire already prepared, where you have a lot of generic questions as well as some specific questions, like what apps do you use currently for this particular thing. So that is more specific in nature, right? So you have a questionnaire in hand before, and then you go to a user. You don't randomly go. You should, like, ideally ask for a proper time where they are more relaxed and they're kind of in a state of mind where they want to talk to you. It's generally better if you can do it in their settings, like in at their house or wherever they work, where they are in their own environment, because that is where they will give you the best responses generally. So these are some of the techniques, some of the things you can keep in mind when you're doing user interviews. And user interviews are generally the best way to do user research. There is one more technique which is called user persona, where you kind of create a persona, imaginary persona, where you maybe write down that I have a imaginary user who's working in this company and who has two kids, and she takes care of her house and she leaves the house at this time. Then she's working from this time to this time, or whatever. Like, you kind of create a story out of what she's doing with her life, what are the challenges which she's facing. So you create a hypothetical image of your persona, and this helps in giving some kind of like understanding of your user. Um, it doesn't give you so many details as user interviews, but it will still help when you don't have a lot of time. Third thing is journey mapping, where you can just put in and map their journeys. Like I said, like, ask them what do they do in their entire day, and kind of like map their journeys, right, visually. And lastly, you could do a competitive research to get started and to like empathize with the users. For example, like, if you're looking at just designing a shopping app. So you can do a competitive research, because already there are some apps which have a lot of users, and they're doing pretty well. So maybe you can learn from them as well. So that's also another good way of doing some sort of research. So always start your projects with a set, or like some type of research. It is the best if you can do two types or three types, but at least one is definitely required. Moving on to the next phase of designing, it's called defining, right? What it means is that you might have gathered some data from your first stage of empathizing. So you might have gathered some understanding that maybe they are not able to manage time when it comes to personal as well as office work. So when there's an overlap, it's difficult for them to manage time properly. So now you want to put it in a way where your problem becomes clear, right? Um, so what this really helps is, it will help you be in check later on when you generate ideas. You'll always have that kind of statement right in front of you, so you know what you're solving. Because it often happens that we lose the sight of what actually our goal was in the first place, and we kind of lose the sight of what we were trying to actually solve. What is the thing which we actually want to become easier for our users, and we try to just generate more ideas about some random features, some random things. So that is not the way you should go about it. The better way is always define your problem in a manner where it becomes like a problem statement, and then keep it in front of you. I try to put in one over here, where what this statement is doing is, it's broken down into three. You can see three basically sections. The first one talks about the user. So it just says Alaida is a multitasking, tech savvy mother of two. So this sentence tells you a lot about this particular user. It's telling you she's multitasking, she does a lot of work and juggling around work. She is tech savvy, so she knows how to use it's like she knows how to use laptops, how to use phone, and how to kind of juggle between all these. and at the same time she's mother of two. So what can you understand from it? Must be a busy woman, and she wants to save time. She doesn't want to waste her time. She has a lot of responsibility. So this is what you can gather about her, right, from this just one single statement. Now, the second part of the statement is needs. So now, what are the needs? What is that thing which Alida needs? So Lida needs to quickly and confidently compare options without leaving her comfort zone. Okay, so this is, I think I was trying to write an example around a shopping app. And basically, she's the mother of two and she's tech savvy and all. So she doesn't have a lot of time to go out and shop. And but at the same time, she doesn't want to make a stupid buy. So she wants to be very sure and confident of making a purchase, but she doesn't have a lot of time. So she wants to be quick, and she doesn't want to leave her comfort zone. Maybe because she has two kids, she doesn't want to leave them home alone, right? So these are the needs of her. And finally, in order to, so why does she wants to do all this? Why is our user um, requiring all these things? What is the actual intent? What is the actual goal behind it? So that is like, for example, over here, in order to spend more time doing the things that really matter. That's pretty obvious, right? For a mother who's tech savvy and who's job, and she's also a mother of two. She wants to spend her time thoughtfully and more mindfully, and she doesn't want to waste it. So that's her main goal. And for that, she wants kind of like an app where she can maybe compare products from different brands together, and she can make a sound purchase. Um, so I hope you can understand that with just this one statement, which talks about the user, the needs, and the goal, it becomes so clear. The picture becomes so clear. And now the next level is now just generate ideas around it. Now you know that, okay, why is she, like why the particular user wants to do something. Now you clearly know they want to save time, they want to make thoughtful decisions, right? So this is what you do in defining stage. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of define it, you can combine all your research, observe where your problems exist, and in pinpointing your users' needs, begin to highlight opportunities of innovation. So while you're doing this, you can also highlight where you think the opportunities are. So from the previous example, we understood that Alida wants to compare products. So there is an opportunity over there because maybe the comparison of products from different brands is not so easy nowadays, or maybe this feature is not available in any of the products or whatever. But you see that there is an opportunity. Now you can highlight things like these while you're defining your problem. The tools and techniques you use in this particular phase are problem statement, which actually I explained to you, where you write your problem into one single statement. And the second one is pain point. So instead of, sometimes people also use this one, where instead of writing a problem statement, they just write about what are the pain points currently. It also is a technique which is mostly used when you already have some product out there and you just want to make improvements in it. For example, I am a user of Instagram, and there are some things which I find like I'm so annoyed with on Instagram, and I want to change it. I mean, I'm just like not happy with it. So as a designer who's working in Instagram, I would maybe try to get some time with these users, understand. I don't really want to write a problem statement over here because I know why they are using Instagram and what their purpose is in life, what their background is. But I just want to focus on what are the problems which they're getting stuck with today, and I just want to write them down. So maybe that makes sense for a product like Instagram, which is already established and they have a good user base, who are loyal to the product, right? So This is another technique which you can use. But when you're doing something which is like for the first time and really innovative, then you should definitely have a problem statement in place. That's the phase two. And now we're talking about phase three, which is ideate. And mostly it's the like exciting part of a design process. Like we all want our creative juices to be flowing most of the time. So this one gives us so much of energy, right? Uh, and also it happens that we directly jump to the ideate phase. Like whenever I used to do this when I was a younger designer, or I was a student, I would directly jump to ideation, and have so many ideas about everything, right? But since I skipped the research phase, I skipped the empathize and define phase. I had faced these problems where I lost sight of what I was actually trying to solve for. So that's why I say from experience, it's important to go and follow the step, right? When it comes to ideation, it's even better if you do it with your team, but you can do it alone as well. There are a lot of techniques where you should write down at least 20 ideas, so that because it's often said that first 10 ideas are the ones which are most common, and after that, the 11th idea from 11th idea onwards, you actually start getting better ideas which are actually thought provoking and can bring in change in people's life. So that's something. But yeah, mainly ideation is brainstorm, a place where you kind of, or a stage where you brainstorm all kinds of ideas. So you don't have to be very logical over here, I would say. You can be a bit of crazy, creative, and if you have already highlighted problems or opportunity areas in your previous stage, then it becomes even easier for you. So you should feel free and give yourself as well as your team total freedom to generate as many as ideas possible. So quality is not important here, but quantity is the king here. So you should have more ideas in numbers, and filtering can be done later on, where you can filter down those ideas and say, oh, this makes sense. This is so stupid and crazy. Let's just remove it, right? But at this particular stage where you're ideating, have you can use a lot of techniques. So when I talk about techniques, there are things like brainstorming. Brainstorming is mainly you can gather a few people or your team if you're working with a team, or you can actually do it alone as well. Have a set of sticky notes or something, and just write down all the thoughts you have. This is just like give one sticky take one sticky for each idea and keep writing all your ideas. Like if you're working with a team, you all should gather, sit and write down all your ideas, then have some time to for each person to share what they have written, to talk out basically, and this keeps everyone involved. And later on, you can basically group those ideas, that hey, this one belongs to the home page, or this one belongs to profile page, or whatever, right? You can group them in some way, which can be very contextual to your own project. So I cannot really tell you how to group it, but you can, from your own understanding, see that okay, this is a pattern which is common among all these ideas, so maybe this belong to one group. And this is how you brainstorm. The second technique is mind mapping. um, it's generally like you create a visual map of how your users are thinking, and kind of like just create this like map or a web like thing where you kind of connect thoughts from other thoughts and you generate more ideas. So a lot of times these are also used. And the third is storyboarding, where I personally have used this one also a lot, where you create it happens that like you're not really able to like solve something just by problem statement. So you really need a storyline. Like you need to understand who your user is, what they're doing, how did they start the day, and then later on this is what they wanted to do. So this is what they picked up their phones and they looked at something, right, or whatever. So you need to have a storyline for this, and this helps you in like generating ideas in kind of a flow and make them more realistic. So as you go by the story, you go to the next step of the story. You will have more ideas and more ideas, which are actually in a rhythm. They'll be, organized. So this is also a great technique. Mostly, I personally use brainstorming and storyboarding commonly, but you can actually look at all these techniques in detail as well. There are a lot of resources just to read more about them. Fourth one is prototyping. And I'm sure if you all are like, if you're interested in design, you must have heard the term prototyping. You would be so enthusiastic about, hey, I want to create a prototype. And it's actually fun to create a prototype. But I'm sure by now you understand that why do you create a prototype? So prototypes generally are a real looking or feeling kind of versions of what your ideas are. And they just give your users in a kind of feeling that it's a real like a real prototype or a real product which they're using, but it's actually just a quick hacky prototype which you put together. Um, and yeah, just to as I'm saying, the meaning means that uh, building real tactile representations for a subset of your ideas. And yes, the goal, you should understand why do you do this. The goal is that you show these to your users. You are able to share it with your users and get their feedback. So that is your goal. So the goal is not like you want to make this fancy looking prototype and all that, but you actually want to give it to your end users and get to need to get their feedback on it. And you can actually use a lot of software these days. I'm sure you must have been using Adobe XD. I think it's popular among students. Then there is Figma, which you can use for prototype. There is Protopie, there's Principle. So that there are all of these apps which you can use, wherein you create some sort of UI or screens in Figma or in Adobe XD, and you can basically connect these through hotspot kind of thing, where you can, I mean, if you tap on one of the things, it opens the next screen, and you can even define animations, etc. So it gives it a more real feeling. So that is what I mean by prototype. And actually, you don't even like always have to kind of jump into your laptop and design something quickly. You can even draw things on paper. Like if you're, I mean, I draw a lot, and if you're more comfortable with that, you can just draw your ideas on paper, and you can show paper prototypes also to your users. And it also especially helps when you're in the early stage and you just have a lot of ideas and you want to quickly do a like run through and check which ones make sense. You can do this where you need spend a lot less time in creating prototype. You just make something like using pen and paper, and you show it to your users, right? So that's there. And finally, you would test it. So how can you run a test? Is there are multiple ways of doing it. You can if possible, the best way is like in-person test, like go in person, show your phone, show your device or laptop or whatever, and just like ask them to play around with this prototype, use it, tell them that, give them tasks that, okay, like so imagine this situation where you have this app on your phone and you're using it to compare different products and buy it, and you give them that kind of prototype, and then you just observe and ask them to speak aloud and share their thoughts while they're using the prototype, right? So this way you can understand that what is bugging them, what is like a point where they are very happy with the prototype, right? So you need to understand their emotional flow while using the prototype. And yep, so meaning simply is that you need to basically, your goal is to understand that is this solving the needs which I define in the problem, in the define stage. Is this solving their need? Is this solving their problem? Has it improved their experience or has it not? So you need to kind of ask these questions, sometimes to yourself, sometimes to users, and that's what prototypes really help you with. And yeah, as I said, you can do in-person tests. You could do send links of these prototypes online and do a user testing, or just like a video call and kind of do a test. So there are a lot of ways, I mean, how you can do, and a lot of like, because now things are virtual, I think you can find a lot of ways where users can share their screens and record that. Yeah, another good tip is always record, possible, if possible, ask for their permission if it is okay to record while they're talking, and do that if they're okay, because that really helps you in helps you gather everything in a proper manner, because just by noting down on paper, sometimes you miss out on some points. If possible, do it in a pair of two people, wherein one can help you take notes or record or whatever, and one person is just there to ask questions and narrate to their users what they have to do next. So this is how the setup is like when you're running a user test. And finally, coming to the last stage, and I think this one is a lot of work, but I've not put a lot of info here, because as you can understand, implement just means that now you have done all of it, right? Now you know what works, and you know, like, this is the idea I have to kind of create or build, or this one is the best. So take those best ideas and implement them. So make the best possible animation, visual design, design language, and basically create whatever is required. And you can again use a lot of tools for this. Figma is one, Adobe XD is one. So you can like create your UI and everything, and make sure that you implement those ideas in a proper manner. A lot of times, like, designers just go through that design thinking process, and in the by the end of it, they're just too tired and they don't want to do spend much time in this. But it's actually the most crucial phases, right? Because now this is the final point. You are actually implementing what you've learned till now about your users. So make sure that you spend or you have saved enough time for implementation stage early on when you're planning, so that you don't miss out on it and you don't rush through it, right? So that's all. I hope you got everything I've shared, and I didn't just went on and on like that. But yeah, that's all I wanted to share, and I'll be happy if you have any questions. You can write to me on any of my handles. I'm quite active and responsive on these. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if they're there. You can write down on the chats, so Riddhi can actually help me read out those.
So I guess we have a lot of questions for you.
Hello,
Hi.
hey Riddhi, hi.
So the first question is, ma'am, as a student, we got too many hackathons. Some of them are really time constrained. Can you please highlight few very important features of design, as time is a really big feature?
Got it. Okay. As I think what I've gathered from this question is you don't have enough time mostly to go through this entire process. So what is, like, as a student, what is the quickest way of doing all this, right?
Yeah.
Um, Okay, I think in that case, the some of the most important thing is you should do, as I said, some kind of research. It doesn't have to be user interviews if you don't have time. You could just do a complete analysis of the products which are there right now in the market. That can give you a good handle of things. I think that is very important. The empathize phase, then define is still okay. You can, I mean, skip it if you're very short on time. Ideation again is very important. You have to ideate and put down all your ideas. Otherwise, there's no point of doing it. And then, yeah, in terms of prototyping, I think in hackathons, if you have to like, you can even share your prototype. So I don't think you should skip that step. You should also, to save time, you can use a lot of open source libraries which are there, like material design libraries there, fluent libraries there. So you can basically go to Figma community or all these, I mean, libraries online. You can use those resources and save time in creating UI and spend more time in generating ideas. If you're more interested in the UI or visual design side of it, you can spend more time doing like crazier things there. But that's my general advice.
Okay. So the next question is by Priyanchi. Many a time prototyping becomes a mess. How to overcome it and takes more time to resolve it.
Sure. So prototyping becomes a mess. Okay. I mean, yeah, I've not really like walked through you all through prototyping or something. I can take a session on prototyping as well, but um, I think what really happens is your most of the times I've seen people do this mistake is that they want everything to work. I mean, in a prototype, like they want all the like buttons and interactions to kind of work, which generally is not the right approach. When you're making a prototype, just keep in mind that what is it you want to test or measure, right? So just maybe like make click throughs for those. So your prototype will be clean. It will not be like, it will not become messy because you've just like integrated a lot of I mean features into it. Don't do that. So keep it very simple. You can even break the prototype into multiple prototypes, small prototypes, right? And kind of just keep like 7, 8 or to 10 screens maximum in one prototype. I think that's a good approach.
Understood. So the next question is by Cicera. Adding to the
Okay.
question about regarding hackathons, can you answer same with regarding making prototypes at hacks as their time constraint and implementation is also a concern?
Okay, absolutely sure. I think yeah, when you're prototyping for hackathon, you have less time. Actually, prototyping doesn't take a lot of time, so you should not like really. As I said, it's just a real looking or feeling version of your idea, but it's not actual implementation. So you can keep it that in mind. In fact, you can actually share it as a disclaimer whenever you're sharing a prototype that hey, it's just a prototype. So don't expect. I mean, don't expect like it to work smoothly and all, but it's just a prototype of what we are imagining. So and when you're prototyping, when you're actually creating it, I personally use like when I'm short on time, I use Figma. I know a lot of you use Adobe XD as well. I've seen students using Adobe XD a lot. So I think, yeah, even that has all the like quick features you can use. If you want to like do a pro prototype, then you have different tools as well. So maybe like you shouldn't like try and using them to save time. I think these are the best tools, and don't like go into details about animations and all that. If you don't have time, just like make simple click through ones, like you click on one screen, next screen appears. Like just keep it simple. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay, Cicera's answer. Cicera has one more question. Testing, there are a lot of iterations. How to keep that patience and move on?
Right. That's actually a good question, and it happens with all of us while testing. Yeah, you make a lot of iterations. I mean, sometimes it becomes crazy, right? And key, I think, is patience and move on. Yeah, basically, you should not like attach too much to any of your ideas. I think that is just the basic, I think, law of being a designer. Don't be attached to your ideas. Like, in fact, like in real world, or when you're working with the bigger teams, if we have our design critiques, and where we present our ideas, we get feedback from other designers, and sometimes feedback is not that great, or it's bad on something you worked on, right? So you'll feel very hurt that, oh, why didn't it work so well? So I think that's the key. Like, don't attach yourself to any of the things. Just think of it as one of the iteration, and till the time you know that, okay, this one works the best. Sometimes we have our own biases, and we are more biased towards something, but it turns out that this was not the best idea of all these, right? I think the best way is to just like, just think that ultimately your goal is to solve your users' problems, right? And not really push one particular idea. So that's not your goal. So just be clear on your goals. I think that will help.
Okay. We have another question by Dipster. Poor UI UX results in high bounce rates in Google rankings. Can you give some suggestions to avoid this?
Okay. For high bounce rates in Google rankings. Hmm. Okay, I think this is in terms with websites, I'm guessing. Can you give some suggestions to avoid this? I think in general, there are a lot of like principles when you're designing websites. A good way is like things like giving, I mean, I can give you some general tips, but I'm not sure if that will work for you. At the end of the day, it might be something else. But some general tips are that keep the performance should be good. So your websites shouldn't take a lot of time. Like, a lot of times it happens that we've used very heavy imagery or videos, etc., and it takes a lot of time to load. So that's a turn off for users, and especially in mobile devices, it won't open and it will take a lot of time. So avoid that. Whenever you're using imagery, use the lowest basically the smallest kind of version of it, which is not pixelated, etc., but it's still small in size. So make sure you're doing that. Make sure you have CTAs everywhere, so whenever you're giving a piece of information or anything in your website, have a call to action. It should connect, or it should lead users to maybe something next, or what action should they take in from there, right? So these are some general principles, but I think you can read a lot more about how to make more efficient websites, just websites. So yeah, that will help. I hope that helps.
Okay. The next question is by Tanmay. I don't know design. I tried once but didn't get any creativity. What are the prerequisites when starting design?
Okay, sure. I hope that now, like, again, when you're gonna try the design thinking methodology you just shared today, you'll feel, I'm sure you'll generate more creative ideas and everything. So you're gonna feel more creative for sure. And your second question is, what are the prerequisites? There are actually not a lot. I think mostly it's like you should have some sort of background experience or portfolio of your work. So mostly that's one. If you have studied design, then it's a big plus. If you have not that, then it doesn't stop you from anything. But yeah, you might have to like do a lot more work to kind of cover for it. But yeah, there are not, the biggest is having experience, if possible. Yes, learning professionally as well, that's a big, I mean, that's again a plus, but it's not mandatory. So have a portfolio in place, work on more projects, I think. Do internships, and that's how you gather experience, I think.
Okay. We have another question by Achintya. What changes should I make to increase conversions?
Okay. Conversions. Okay. I think, see, general ideas, like, I mean, I can generally advise you, but I can be more specific if there are some details also which you can share. But I think conversions mostly, there are mistakes which users make. Sometimes it's, I mean, sorry, designers make some mistakes, so which you should avoid. Like sometimes there is no information, and when you kind of visit a website or an app, so there is absolutely no reward. But it's just like, hey, just sign up for this, sign in for this email, give your email for this, and all of that, right? So, um, but what the users are getting in return of it is nothing, or maybe there is something, but you've not highlighted it enough. So you really need to make sure that there is a, like, it's a transact, I mean, at this point, when a person is new to your product or app, website, whatever it is, it's a transactional relationship. At that point it is not become emotional. So they will, anytime they feel like, oh, it's not worth my time, they'll just leave it, and yeah, conversion rates will reduce. So you need to make sure you're giving away something. That something is what you can decide more, but try and give something for free, so that, first they understand the value of what you're doing, right? They understand the value of what they will get from this, and then you pursue them for conversion. I think that's a better technique to approach it.
Okay, I guess we have another question by Costa. How does UI UX reduce the time for product development?
Okay. Yeah. So how does it reduce the time for product development? You might think that it increases the time, and so much time goes in designing, so it's such a waste of time. But in the long run, it actually increases. I mean, it actually decreases the product development time, because what happens is, maybe the first version you come up with is well designed, well thought out, and you do not have to like redesign things again and again. You can just maybe fix something which is not working, and that's all. So in that way, UI UX saves a lot of time, because it saves a lot of time for the entire, I mean, the engineering or other functions, because they now have solid ideas which are well researched, which they're working on and they're implementing. It's not just like, hey, let's just build this and test out. So it's not that. You already done your research, you already are confident. So yeah, it will save the time in the long run, maybe not in the short run.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have another question by Mahidar. According to you, what are the main steps for UI UX design process?
Hmm. Sure. I think I did cover all the main steps which I feel are important. I did cover in today's session. So go through the design thinking process. If you missed the, I mean, session, if you've not attended the entire session, just watch the video again and read more about the design thinking process and all the stages involved in it. So I think these are the main steps. Then again, like, if you want to reduce it, you can. It's just a framework for you to think, right? So yeah.
Okay, then we have another question by Priyanshi. What is the relation between Google Analytics and UI UX?
Okay, Google Analytics and UI UX. So I think you're asking in respect to any website, I'm guessing. So yeah, I can give you an example to explain. So for example, you have a website, and you have two buttons in it. You've designed like two types of buttons, and now, yeah, I mean, you don't know which one is the best, but you just think these two are good, but you cannot remove any of it, because you feel that both are good, and that's like, maybe, yeah, that's what you're thinking. Now, from Google Analytics, what you can maybe understand is, if you already have connected Google Analytics to your website, you can basically get data on what are users clicking on. So you might get data around that. Maybe one of the buttons is doing much better, like performing much better, and that's what it is. Basically, Google Analytics just helps you in getting data and making more, I think, making more sound decisions. That's I think that's the connection. But it's, I mean, you can use there are other softwares as well which can be used. It's mainly the data analytics part of it, or data, how do you get to understand user data. That's what these tools are going to help you with. So yep, I hope that helps.
Yeah. We have another one by Nikita. How can we measure the success of a UX design project?
I see. How can we measure the success? Okay, great. Actually, the best way is like if you follow the design thinking process which I shared, you will have a problem statement if you're going to follow that. So you'll have a clear problem statement defined, and the best way is just like go back, look at that problem statement, and try to answer that, is that problem solved or not. Like you can even ask your users that, is you had this problem initially, right? We spoke, and is this solved with this experience or not? If you are getting a like, yeah, if you hear that yes, this is, I mean, much better now, yep, you, this is the best way to measure. This is like a, I mean, more, I would say, cheap or a cost effective way of measuring. Of course, there are most costlier ways of measuring in real world, where we actually have those kind of analytics in products, and we analyze the data, and we analyze the number of conversions or things like that. So there are of course more costlier ways of doing it. The most efficient is go and talk to users and ask them. And if you have, I think, if you have access to these tools, if you have the kind of opportunity to use these analytic tools, then yeah, of course, measure the data, and get like, and yeah, find out that is that a success or not. So yeah.
Okay. We have another question. What are the necessary skills for a UI UX designer that one should have before sitting in the placements?
Okay. Placements, I think, necessary skills would be having I think a design thinking mindset, that is important. Like most of the times, in interviews, it happens that you are given some sort of design problem to solve, and you want to come up with the best idea and all. But generally, the maybe the process or the approach you follow, that's more important for your interviewer to know. If you, yeah, if you have a mindset where you follow this design thinking process, that's really good. Then what you really need to come with in interviews is a good portfolio. So try and like have sample of your work in place, put them in a better way, like where you show the entire process behind it. Don't just show your, like, yeah, just that, like, I mean, just what you've made, but show the entire process which is gone behind it. So I think, yeah, these are the few things you should kind of make sure you're doing before you're going for the placement, and I think that should be good enough.
Understood. We have another question by Harsh. Can you suggest some resources to start learning from trash, as I don't know anything about design, but I'm really interested in learning this after this session?
Okay, great. I'm happy that you're interested to learn more after the session. So that's amazing. I think one of the courses you can do is, there is a recently Google launched this design course. You can search for it online, UX design course. It's a virtual course, so you can go and do that. That will give you a good, I think, idea about what design is. And yeah, I think, yeah, similarly, like more details around the process and tools, etc. So try and do that. Other than that, you can actually do a lot of courses, UX design courses from other websites also. But yeah, I mean, that's a good starting point.
That's great. Um, we have another one by Shihij. How to make older generations feel comfortable while using an app or a site? What things should I keep in mind while designing a UI UX to make the customer experience smooth even for our grandparents?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's, yeah, it's something you observe, right? Like maybe because technology is so much, I mean, it's designed for younger generation. So not all products, I'd say, but most of them do not consider the older generation. but actually more usage of that is from our grandparents or parents or whatever. So like for example, WhatsApp now has become a, I mean, go-to app for grandparents, parents, right? But it's not
Agree.
designed like that. So I think, I mean, I can of course suggest some principles like being language conscious, like as I said, like understanding what language, I mean, what region of users are there and what is the language they use. And sometimes, like I've seen that in India, that I've noticed that not everyone, like from these, like I've seen from my own in my own family, that the older generation is not so comfortable in typing things and they want to use voice, right? So for just like speaking out, and so maybe like things like these should be taken care of. But better is like do some thorough research, maybe do some like interviews, and if you're doing a project where say you're designing something for your grandparents, that is an interesting project. So do some research, talk to those grandparents, what they want. Like recently I discovered like that dark UI is all really cool and everything, and younger generation loves it. But when I showed it to my mom, she's like, oh, I cannot see anything. So it is like, yeah, it is very difficult for her to see things in dark UI. So I mean, something which maybe was not considered before, so you can find out these opportunity areas. So yeah, I hope that helps.
It should. I mean, the last part, I totally agree to it. It's so relatable. The dark mode
Yeah.
one. We have another one by Priyanji. As we know, Google is very specific with DSA in its interviews. Is it the same for design as well? And how competitive it is to be in the dream company Google?
Okay. So I think in terms of competition, it is competitive. I mean, of course, it is competitive because Google is the basically a company which has very high standards of design. They value design a lot. So of course, like it's a place where a lot of people want to work in. So it's competitive, but it's not that like there's no opportunity for, I mean, for designers, because there is a lot of opportunity. There are a lot of opportunities which keep coming up. So even internships, etc. So there are definitely a lot of opportunities out there, and Google is very specific with DSA in its interviews. I'm sorry, I don't know what DSA is over here. Um,
Data structures and algorithms, I guess. The coding
oh,
things.
coding, okay, yeah. I am personally not an engineer, so I don't know about it. I see, yeah, I know that they're quite specific. I think when you go through like in design interviews as well, they are specific. As in, you for every interview you'd kind of have some sort of structure in place and things like that. So that's there. But mostly the interviews are, I mean, the focus is not like just in interviews. The focus is everything, like your portfolio, your resume, what you've done before this, and all that. So your experience matters a lot if you're applying for Google. So I would say that's important.
Okay. We have another one by Zeal. As a designer, while grabbing various opportunities, we are tested using prototyping once, but sometimes it is a fail. How to overcome this and bounce upon such situations?
Okay. When you're saying like a lot of times you're testing with the prototype and it fails. It's true, actually. It happens that prototypes doesn't work as you imagine it will work, and things doesn't work like the way you imagine it will work when you will test, and you're suddenly left confused that, oh, I thought it will open the screen, it's not opening. So I would say like don't get very confused and scared and all. It's I mean, just uh, it's okay to like tell your user that, hey, I apologize or whatever. I mean, not apologize, but like this was a prototype and it intended to do this, but it's not doing this, so let me like maybe just share screens or like have paper prototype or something. So sometimes technology can be I mean, surprising. So even that's why I said it's okay to just draw out your ideas and show it to your users. So um, you can feel free to tell your users that, hey, this is not working the way I expected it to work. So can you give me some, like, can you look at these screens and like share your feedback, or can you like look at these paper mocks and kind of give your feedback around, like, imagine this situation and you're going to do this and that. So yeah, feel free to do that. Don't get very disappointed with maybe a prototype not working it the way you expected it to work. Like,
Okay. We have another question by Kathi Racing. Is it good to try for a full time job or doing freelancing after learning UI UX design? And can you give tips for how to be successful on the same?
okay, so you're saying what to choose, freelancing or full-time job. I think it's absolutely personal decision. I know a lot of good designers who choose to stay freelancers because it just gives them more flexibility to work with different companies and projects. And yeah, it gives them more basically flexibility. I know like some people prefer a full-time job because of like more stability and maybe deep dive into one product and things like that. So it's absolutely personal. I cannot like I mean I don't think I have the right um, advice on this which one to select. So it's up to you what you like, so go for it. You can try both and then decide also. I mean, that's also a good approach. Um, After, and can you give tips to become successful on the same? So I think management is one of the things which a lot of designers actually are like. I mean, even from my own, if I think about my own time as a student, I was not very well organized, like in terms of putting my files in the right place, or just organizing everything. So I think that, or just like organizing my time properly. So I think these are just general management tips which are going to help you to become better. You can do I mean, even if you're doing a job or a freelance gig, so anything. So I think, yeah, in general you can improve those skills.
Okay, understood. So we have one more question by Abhash. How do we manage the trade off between designing something just for the sake of it and designing something which solves the problem?
Hmm. Hmm. So I'm not quite clear. So how do we manage the trade-off between designing something just for the sake of it? I see. So I mean, I don't think you should be designing anything just for the sake of it. If it's not required, don't do it. You don't. I mean, yeah. So the trade-off, because just for the sake of it, designing something is, I mean, I don't understand really what the question is. So I just think like when you're designing something, it should be solving a purpose. Even if like you're designing a basic login page, you should be able to log in. I mean, your user should be able to log in through it. So I don't think anything is just made without purpose. Yeah, sometimes it often happens that design is like decorational, or it just like you want to kind of maybe use visuals or animations to make things more delightful. I would say even that is done for a purpose. Like it's not done without a reason. Sometimes it's like the content is very complicated, you don't want your users to read through a lot of sentences, etc. So you make a visual or make it like visually better, or add animations to explain the concept better, things like that. So I think even that is done with the purpose in UX generally.
Okay. We have another question now by Anjana. What does Google look for in internship candidates?
Okay, I think it's pretty much similar to what I said about going in for placements. I think they have the same attitude around really understanding what the thought processes of the particular candidate. It's not just about what did they come up with in the assignment or whatever. It's more about the thought process, and of course portfolio or some sort of prior experience in the field. So that is important.
Okay. I guess we still have a lot of questions pending, but due to the time crunch, we'll have to wrap it up right now. Sorry, everyone, and thank you so much, ma'am. We really appreciate your time and assistance. The session was marvelous. We were delighted to have you as our host, and I'm sure even it was enlightening for the audience too.
I'm glad. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. And I'm glad that some of you are interested to learn more about design. Feel free to reach out to me. And thank you again for having me here. And it was a really good interactive session, so I enjoyed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.